Great news for you, but not my bank account. I went on eBay and let myself type in that fatal word, faulty. And then a few days later, this turned up. This is a Sony PCG-FX801, and there's a bit of story behind this. Let's have a look at it. So, to get that excited over a 20-plus-year-old Sony laptop, there's got to be a backstory. Back when I was in high school, I really wanted this particular model of laptop. I couldn't afford it, so it was forever just a pipe dream. But like most teenagers, I obsessed over it quite a lot, really tried to save the money on myself, but ultimately couldn't. I waited until, well, it would have been a year or two ago, and I finally bought one myself, secondhand, on eBay. And the other day, this one came up. But, unlike the one I'd owned previously, this is mint in box, it's got all of its original accessories, it's even got the recovery CDs. The one I bought a year or two ago doesn't have any of that, it was just a laptop in fairly poor condition, as you'd expect for its age, and a power supply. The only problem is, the one I've bought in box doesn't work. But I'm wondering, because it's in such good condition physically, if I can use it with the one I've got here to make a good one out of the two. Let's find out. Once I'd purchased it, I had a little bit of a chat with the chap I bought it off to try and get a better idea of the fault it has. He just said in the eBay listing it wouldn't boot up. It turns out that it looks like, well, to me anyway, a memory fault. All the lights come on as they should, but it just doesn't get any further than that. Nothing on screen, just sits there. That was my expectation. However, he then said that he has sent it to a computer shop to see if they could repair it, and they turned around and said it's not a memory fault, it's something else. This sort of leaves you wondering whether it's motherboard, and all the kind of things that you, as much as I'd love to, you really don't want to get into on something this old. So that's where we're at. It looks like a memory fault, but apparently isn't a memory fault, and you'd think a computer shop would do the sort of normal tests to sort of rule that out. Let's hope they've done them right, I guess. We'll find out soon. He did say to me that he bought this laptop, used it for 3 years, and one day it just wouldn't power on, so he put it back in its box, took it to his loft, or attic, if you're in another country, and he left it there. And it was only when he was moving house that he found the laptop up there, still in its box, in good condition, and thought it was worth listing it on eBay. I won it for the princely sum of 27 UK pounds, plus postage, which was another 8. So, 35 quid all in, and either way, bit of a bargain. The only caveat being, there's no hard drive in it. Because it wouldn't power up, and that had some of his data on it, he's taken the hard drive out. Fair enough. The handy thing about having another FX801 here, is that we can just pop the hard drive from that into this machine, if we get it to boot, to check everything else. So, let's get going. Being a bit of a nerd, nothing is more exciting than this sticker. Athlon XP. My first computer, well the first one I built anyway, had an Athlon XP 2500 Plus processor. That's kind of giving away my age a little bit, so the less said about that the better. Let's see what we've got in here. He described it as having everything included, and wow, it looks like he was right. I've said I'll pop a link over to him once the video is done, so if you're watching, hello John from eBay, and thanks again for this rather wonderful laptop. So we've got original recovery media. Try not to knock the camera off with that. What's in here? Ah, power supply. Cool. And a comically long figure of 8 lead. Composite out video. Oh wow, we're in the days long before HDMI, of course. And an original Sony power supply. The power supply for my other FX801 isn't original, so this is a good thing. Keeping that. And a modem cable. It's like stepping back in time. Right. Let's see what the main event's like. Still in the bag. Now that's a nice touch. Wow. Clearly been looked after. There we go. Excellent. It's such a shame it doesn't work, because that is, I mean, the keys are a little shiny in places, but that is in wonderful condition. Sony had this purple and grey thing, or purple and black thing, whichever way you want to look at it, I guess, going on in the 2000s. And I always thought it just worked so well. It's a wonderful bit of tech, that. It's a real blast from the past. I really hope I can actually get this one working, because as much as I can Frankenstein the two together, this is a brilliant little machine in its own right. Okay. We'll switch to the other camera view, we'll get it on the bench, and yeah, let's have a look and see if we can find anything obvious that's stopping it working. Hello and welcome to the classic overhead view. Let's see what we've got. So, power socket feels nice and tight, that's good. These barrel jacks on the Sonys have a habit of breaking. I've replaced a lot of those in my time. Even the battery charging light is flashing. From memory, 2 flashes I think is a good thing. This is where a million people tell me it's not a good thing when the battery's dead. And at 20 plus years old, I'd be amazed if it is anything other than absolutely knackered, because they don't live that long. Notoriously hard to get batteries for, however, I bet like most things it's just a string of 18 650s, so we can always rebuild that if needed. Let's see what we've got. Do a quick power on. Just completely dead. No beeps, no flashes, no nothing. Right. Interesting. Normally you'd get at least a beep or a flash or something. This is just powering on as normal and then doing absolutely nothing. Right, okay. Let's power it back off. So we have our very fetching pink screwdriver. Let's pop the cover off and see what we've got fitted in here. It should be 256 megabytes of RAM as standard. So we've got one card in there. Yeah, 256 megabytes of 133 megahertz RAM. PC-133. That's a term that'll evoke some core memories for a lot of people, I'm guessing. I mean, I never assumed that anyone has actually ever done any testing, so what we're going to do is use another card I have here from a ThinkPad I have on my desk. Well, I've stolen this out of. When people say something's been tested or a computer shop's had a look at it, I never trust it because one, I've bought lots of things that actually do work fine once a little bit of common sense has been applied, and two, I've worked in a few computer shops and the level of, in quotes, testing that has been done is often not very thorough. Always best to do it yourself, then at least you know it's been done properly. We'll plug it back in and see if there's any life now. Nope, still completely dead. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is have a little play around with the memory modules, just give the sockets a clean, see if that is possibly the issue, because at 20 plus years old you just don't know what is causing something like this, and you always rule out the simple stuff before you get digging in deep into motherboard faults, that kind of thing. I couldn't find out from online documentation whether the CPU on this laptop is socketed or whether it's soldered straight to the board. This is from a time where some laptop manufacturers were moving towards mounting the chips directly to the board and some were still using sockets. So we're going to have a look at that, perhaps reseat the processor, and if it's one that is soldered directly to the board, look at something like a reflow to see if perhaps, you know, there's a dry joint there or something like that. But we'll start simple first. So what we're going to do is go back into the memory bay. So as you can see, the laptop has two memory sockets, A and B. Helpfully B is labelled, which is good. Logically, of course, you would always use the first socket A, which is where the memory from the factory is installed on pretty much any laptop. I've had it before on several of my computers and laptops where one or more of the memory sockets has died and it just won't boot up with a card in them. The PC that I use for all my video editing has 4 slots and 2 of them are now completely dead. Granted, it is nearly 10 years old and I probably should upgrade it at some point, I guess, but I have no need to yet and I'll keep using it as long as I can. It's got an 8GB card in each slot that still works, for a total of 16, and for me that's plenty. but it goes to show that it can be the slot that's dead. But given that this has been to a computer shop, you'd expected them to have tried the memory in another slot first. Pretty confident this isn't going to fix anything, but we'll try it in this slot. And we'll go with the original memory as fitted from the factory. Okay, let's see if that's done anything. Oh! Oh, it's booted up. Apologies for the angle, I didn't think we'd be there yet, so I've not got the camera set up in a way that could see the screen. That is on. Oh. Surely it's not just a faulty socket. They would have tested it, surely they would have tried the memory in another socket before they wrote the whole machine off. That's bizarre. Okay, let's jump into the BIOS and see what's going on. Oh yeah, we're in. Yeah, that date and time is not correct, but we're reading 256 megabytes of memory, which is good. While I was in the BIOS, I also turned on the Sony VAIO boot up noise, which was optional. Oh, look at that. Oh, day made. Apart from this, but we'll get to that. Thankfully, we've got all the original recovery media. All I need to do is find a hard drive, and we're good to go. But we can test it before I do that, because I have an identical laptop with Windows XP installed. I can just pop the hard drive in this one, and it should, in theory, boot straight up. Before we jump into Windows though, I'm going to run memtest because I want to see if there is a problem with either the controller for the memory, something else on the board. Memtest is pretty good at picking up stuff like that, so if there is an issue, that should detect it. Let's see how that goes. Needing to run a tool like memtest created a bit of an issue because this laptop can't boot from USB. It says it can in the BIOS, but it just doesn't work, and I've never figured out why. To be fair, it's an older machine, and you wouldn't expect a machine from 2002 or 2003, which I think this is from memory, to be able to boot from USB. So we have to use one of these! A CDR. This takes me back, and I'll be honest, this is the most exciting part of this, is getting to burn a CD. Even more exciting than that cool Sony boot up noise we just had. We're going to burn a CD with memtest on it. I'm going to fire that up and we'll see if there's any issues detected. It's absolutely crazy that back in the day, this was the way we moved data around. It seemed normal, and I remember getting my first CD burner and then a DVD burner and thinking, how can it be more futuristic than this? But of course, now we have SD cards that are this big and can hold a terabyte, whereas this little boy only holds 700 megabytes. But the technology that goes into a CD is incredible, and the way these work is mind-boggling. If you're curious, have a look around YouTube, there's loads of videos talking about it. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I found it very, very interesting, and if you're a bit nerdy, even if you won't admit it, I think you'll like it too. Without going horribly off topic, I went to put the CD in my burner, and bear in mind I only have one computer with an optical disk drive, and in it was this little thing. A mini CD. These often came with stuff like webcams or PCI expansion cards, and I think from memory they hold about 150 megabytes, something like that. But most importantly, they're absolutely adorable, and they're really cool because when you put them in, they spin up really quick. Didn't think I'd see one of those today. It must have been there for a long time because it's been years since I burnt a CD. Burning CDs may feel like an activity from the past, but luckily Windows 10 retains the integrated CD burning software. We have the disc ready. Let's pop it in and see what happens. There we go. Memtest. It's been a while since I've used this, so all we're going to do is let it do one pass because, in all honesty, for it to get into Windows and work, at least for now, one pass will be indicative of everything working as it should be. As we go through the test, this is what we want to look at, which is total errors found. And as you can see, we are now Halfway through the pass. No errors. I'll be absolutely staggered if this was the issue, because anyone looking at a machine like this, or indeed any computer or laptop, would think, let's just try the memory in another socket. Perhaps that particular technician has never come across a dead socket before, but I'm not a technician and haven't been for many years, and it's something that I've had countless times, even on my own personal PCs and laptops. It just happens. And while this is finishing, what I'm going to do is dig out the hard drive from my other FX801 so we can pop it in this machine and see if it'll boot into Windows and how it behaves there. And finally, if it turns out that this is absolutely fine when running on slot B, we're going to see if we can repair slot A. As much as I really enjoy the thought of trying to use Windows XP on 256 megabytes of RAM, we all know that that was a bare minimum, especially on Service Pack 3. So I'd like to have 512 megabytes, which is what I have in all of my other Windows XP machines as a minimum. Okay, it reckons there's no errors and the pass is finished. So let's see if it'll boot up into Windows with the other hard drive installed. I've just swapped the hard drives over, and a bit of a surprise, this was in there. The listing said that no hard drive was included. However, John has helpfully included this 160GB IDE hard drive. And if you know anything about IDE hard drives, in laptop format, 160GB was on the higher end of what was available. So thank you so much, because I actually would have had to buy a drive for this laptop, assuming that I got it working. Nevertheless, I've popped in the 40GB hard drive from my other FX801, so let's see if we can get into Windows and how it behaves. I really miss Windows XP. I say miss, I still use it regularly, but nothing was ever quite as good, in my opinion. That startup noise, the sound of my teenage years. We're in Windows, and it seems happy enough. Let's see what CPU-Z can tell us. Showing us 256 megabytes of RAM, running at the full 133 megahertz. Oh, interestingly, it can't actually differentiate between slot 1 and slot 2. That's odd. I don't know if that's a limitation of CPU-Z, or whether that means there is a memory controller issue, maybe? Anyway, enough of that. Let's load up some RCT. I've just been absolutely flooded with nostalgia. The amount of time I lost to this game in my younger years is unreal. All seems to be running absolutely fine. Yeah, no complaints here. We know the machine works now. Can we get that first slot working? Let's find out. What I'm going to do first is clean the slot itself with some IPA and a cotton bud, being really careful not to bend any of the delicate pins. Interestingly, now it's given me a beep code. It would have been great if that fixed it, but to be honest, I wasn't very hopeful. Next, we need to prep the memory slots and surrounding area for the reflow. I'm using tinfoil secured in place with insulation tape to stop heat getting to where it shouldn't. We want to reflow the solder joints while not cooking everything else on the motherboard, ideally. This syringe full of flux is ideal for jobs like this. It's got a really handy fine metal tip, meaning you can get a tiny amount of flux where you need it to be without making a mess all over the surrounding circuit board. My weapon of choice, the iRoder Solder Pro 150, comes with a handy heat gun tip, designed to get heat to a circuit board without setting everything on fire, for lack of a better term. Once I was confident I'd applied enough heat to reflow the joints, I carefully cleaned the flux away from the board with a cotton bud. And time for the second row connections, following the same method as the first. I'm being extra careful not to apply too much flux because there's only a tiny amount of solder on each connection, and all the flux you put on the board, you're gonna have to clean off again later. After seeing how concentrated the heat was on a specific area of the board thanks to that tip, I didn't feel I had to cover the bottom half of the circuit board with tinfoil this time. Once the reflow was finished, I cleaned up the flux again and installed the 256MB RAM stick into slot A. Oh, hello. Oh, brilliant. Well, this is unexpected. So unexpected, I've not got my proper microphone plugged in, so I apologise for the terrible audio, but we appear to be booting into Windows with a stick of memory in slot A. Okay. That is absolutely bizarre. So it looks like it was a dry solder joint on the memory socket. Interesting. Okay. We're going to do a mem test again on the memory in slot 1 just to make sure that everything is happy. And wouldn't you know it, a clean pass with no errors. Fantastic. Anyway, let's see if the laptop will boot with both cards fitted. Those of you with cats or dogs will know you can't really get anything done in peace if it's remotely interesting. My cat Nala decided this would be a great time for a cameo appearance. There we go, happily sat in Windows with 512 megabytes installed. The SPD tab only shows the information for one card, but nevertheless, the memory tab displays the full 512 megabytes as being present and correct. I'll save you from another mem test. I ran 2 full passes with 0 errors in this configuration too. One last test. With the battery showing us charging, I thought I'd check if it'd last for any length of time. A whole 3 seconds! I'll be the first to admit I didn't think that would go as well as it did, but the machine is absolutely fine. And after a full charge, the battery actually lasts a fairly decent amount of time considering its age. I got about 20 minutes before it started grumbling about being low on power, which, to be honest, at 20 plus years old, is really good. Everything seems to work as it should, and I've used the Sony recovery media in the box to install Windows XP on the included hard drive, which seems fine too. So a big thank you to John for giving me such a cool project. I've really enjoyed working on it. I did get back in touch with John shortly after I filmed the rest of this video, offering him the machine back if he wanted it, but he said that his wife didn't think it was a good idea to reclutter after he'd just cleared out loads of stuff from his loft. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, really enjoyed making this one, and the end result, fantastic. Hopefully we'll have something else on the way to repair soon. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.